Recorded June 11th, 2026. Good afternoon, Franklin. Good afternoon, Rodney. Good afternoon, Gary. Good afternoon, Nathan. How's everyone doing?
Oh, wonderful. How are you?
Really, really good. Really, really good.
Really?
Well, yeah, sure.
All right, me too.
That's what I tell people. And then I go veg in front of a TV somewhere and try to pretend it's not true.
I've known you 5 years and some change.
Yeah.
You have to have done it somewhere, but I've never just pegged you as a TV person.
Oh no. I grew up on TV. In fact, TV is my safe, happy place.
$6 million man, come on.
Yeah. I mean, look at my background. Man. Yeah, it's kind of messy right now, but
let me put it this way. You and I talk about what comic books we're reading, and I talk more about shows with Franklin because he and his wife, we love zombie genre. So I send show recommendations over, but I don't know. I guess I'm a big TV person. I'm watching like 3 different cartoons and anime now. Which one is that?
That's Weird Mystery number 11. My my stepmom passed, and so we're going through her estate, and I went through the basement, and this was literally the first comic book that I ever owned. And it has my signature on the front. I found this in the basement. I can't believe my dad actually kept it. 1974. So wow. Yeah. So yeah, comic books. I love comic books, but I read the pictures more than the words.
How about yes. It used to be when comic books were so well drawn in the storyline rather than the words that you didn't need the words, right?
Yeah.
How about you not throw that joining the mystery number 11 on the ground and put your fingerprints on? Let's get a bag and get some nitrogen and preserve it. And that's
cotton gloves.
That is so old, and it smells, like it's been sitting in a basement that has water problems.
That's character and value.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll go ahead and get started. Generally we're trying to do the show a little bit different, especially for returning guests. We generally, took new guests into the green room so they can see the flow of the show and get the nerves out of the system. But these are returning guests. They're veterans of the show, so they can listen to our useless banter.
So they shouldn't be nervous. Shouldn't be nervous at all. Yeah.
I'll do mine really quick.
Okay.
I'll sum it up like this. I had a bunch of just frustration in the last couple of weeks trying to get a bunch of stuff done, dealing with sellers, and everything is hence one of the reasons the topic of the show. Everything is the new shiny. I remember 2 years ago, the new shiny was Security Copilot. Microsoft Central new shiny. And now the global new shiny is artificial intelligence. But pointing to where I work at Microsoft and a proud and grateful employee is Agent 365, right?
Yeah. So
the frustration is trying to figure out why I'm with this because I'm having to feel so many cold about this particular thing. And if anybody knows my background, I'm the threat intel, threat detection, threat landscape guy. If you had to productize me, Defender, Sentinel, and the things that go along with that. So as I'm going through this today, I did a presentation with the customer today, and this customer is a friendly, and they're very deep. So I came up with, the 3 tenets of artificial intelligence and interaction with customers as prescribed by Edward Thomas. Number 1, don't BS your customer about artificial intelligence, that services that you offer and the capabilities. Number 2, you're only 1 prompt in front of your customer. They are fact checking you real time.
As you talk to them. Yeah.
As you're talking, the person accidentally shared their screen to me, and I saw that the CIO or CISO, she was fact checking me. Right?
That's
don't
awesome.
do it. Yeah. And number 3, and this current thing that we've been doing since the announcement of Agent 365, I'll even go back to private preview. I had started deeming myself a security guy that was doing AI. That's no longer the case. I am now an artificial intelligence architect, aka engineer, whatever you want to talk, that does security. They have flip-flop. That's the reality now. And when that came on me today, via my wife telling me, she gives me the best career advice. She said, "Oh, you're an AI guy that does security now." She said, "Security, you guys been doing that so long. You still sell it? This is someone that doesn't do it. You guys still sell it?" I mean, she thought that the E5 stuff is just sort of given to you. She doesn't know the SKUs. She works in the Office collab suite, so she knows that you pay for Teams, SharePoint. There's all the stuff she uses every day, and Copilot. Her job uses Copilot extensively. She just thought the security was a thing. She said, "You guys still sell that?" I laughed. I said, "I hope so." She said, "Oh, well, you're an AI guy now that does security," and that resonated more than she thought. And I'll end my week with that right there. And I
agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
And I broke something in Data Lake. I think we'll see.
All you got to do is ask AI how to fix it, because you are an AI person. So.
I am. Yes, I am. I'm doing in frameworks, channels, blueprints. I'm writing a really decent paper on how agent identities get into your environment. So Franklin, ask me that question before we move on to our guest. How many agent ID entities are created? I think you asked me that when you create an agent, and I said it was 4, right?
Right.
Is that the
In
right?
Foundry.
Huh?
In Foundry. Foundry specific.
Yeah. Okay. That is the right answer. Now that I'm doing these things, it's actually 5. We'll have a complete show.
You're probably talking about the blue. You're probably talking about the blueprint when you throw things on there. But
yeah, exactly. Because I'm playing around, like, and I'm doing it. And I just threw something in Sentinel and turned on the connector for Agent 365 observability, and I got that connector in the tenant. And frankly, I upgraded your license back to E5 in our test tenant, and I gave myself an E7 license just because, you know. But if you need the E7 license,
I'll change it back. Don't worry.
Yeah, you just change it back. And you guys have a promise. I promised Franklin this. I haven't done it. Franklin, I created you your own network in my house, air gapped you from my private network, and now you'll have access over to my rig, and I'm put GSA on it. But it wouldn't work, and I couldn't figure out why. And it's because I air gapped it, and now it can't see when you put that machine on to act as for lack of a word, when you use GSA, I just say VPN concentrator endpoint. It's not on my other network, so you can't see it. But what I did was I said, "Yeah, it's worth the investment." So I went back. I caught the special at Verizon after talking with Rod last week about something, and I was able to get the Verizon Home 5G. I was actually able to get the business 5G at the home price for 2 years because I've been with Verizon forever. So I'm gonna put you on that 5G network and connect that network with all my AI assets on that. And I didn't feel like doing VLANs and all that, so I just create a whole new subnet, and then I air gapped you from my home network. Because the next time I catch you on my home network,
you do realize it's useless to try to contain me, right?
Yeah, that's when I air gapped you. Yeah,
that's what she said.
And on that note, I like to say, Franklin, what'd you break this week?
Or could you also?
I got to tell you, this is going to be my last show. So unfortunately,
because
I have to follow the rules, and this is my last show because you know the rule. No MVP is allowed. So
I know you've been punking us the whole time. I've been waiting for you to say something for 2 weeks.
No, I didn't know until after the last show or beginning of the month. So yeah, I've been waiting the few weeks to tell you yes, finally an MVP thanks to Rod and Edward and everybody listening on the show and so on.
Your work. No, it's all you.
So
it's all you, sir. Congratulations.
Thank you. So now I sent you in our group chat there a list of demands now since I'm an MVP. I hope you saw that.
Yeah. Hey, I will see you in Redmond in March then, because it'll be your first MVP summit.
Yes, it will be.
Rod, if you will have me back, I'd like to come back and volunteer and help out with the MVP summit in March, because I'll get to see Franklin harass him.
Yeah.
And you have to come to my sessions that I'll have to moderate and host. So it'll be great.
So we'll have to change the rule of no MVPs allowed on the show so I can stay on. So if you guys are good with that,
Congratulations, Frank. Well deserved. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Rod was bothering me. I wonder if Franklin knows he's the MVP. I said, I talked to Franklin Monday, man. I don't know.
The emails went out on June 1st. I was afraid it went into his spam. So
that's what I said. I said, did it go to
I was waiting for
spam?
the show, and
yeah.
I'm surprised he didn't make it his background. Yeah, and do that. So yeah, I got one of those things somewhere. I think, don't I? Oh no, that's my anniversary crystal thing from Microsoft or something.
No, I don't know if it's everybody, but it looks like you're covering up his face right now.
Yeah, I don't know if he's even here at all. So
who's that?
Here, hold on. Let me move it up. Oh no! Now Nathan's underneath. I'll put myself down. I'll put myself down there. There we go. Nobody wants to see my face anyway.
He's got to remove that message there.
Yeah, change the thing. Let me. There you go.
There you go.
All right.
My bad. I'm sorry. This little layout. I thought we were going to up our subscription. Congratulations for those that are not watching it live. Franklin has achieved the coveted Microsoft MVP. Yes, Andrew, Frank is a legend. Right.
Now the hazing begins.
Now the hazing begins. Hey, yeah, I'd like to see all the emails and the comments that are going to come to your. For those that don't know, Rod is one of the global MVP leads, and so all the hate mail and all the stuff goes to his email.
Yep.
And people whooping and whining. But cool. So hey, without further ado, and actually we started on time. We generally try to do 15 minutes and then we give it to our guest. We'd like to welcome back Nathan and Gary from Cyclotron. Cyclotron is one of Microsoft's premier security partners. You name a designation around security, you have it. They're also a shop that does extensive work in Purview, and they're very gifted. The name come up. I recommend them for my clients that are looking for someone. They're always on my short list. And they've been very gracious to come on and talk about their expertise. One of the shows that was referenced to me one day out of the blue, we were talking about Purview, and they said, "Oh yeah, I watched one of your podcasts," and it was, I think the title was "Why Most Purview Projects Fail." And I said, "Oh yeah, I know that guy. He came on and talked about it." So without further ado, Gary was on the show last. He can reintroduce himself. If he chooses not to, that's okay too. But Nathan's been on the show, but it's been a minute. So Nathan, how about you do a reintroduction of yourself to our listeners, who you are, and what we did to coerce you to come onto the show.
Team, it's great to chat with you. Nathan Carlisle, Director of Security Professional Services at Cyclotron. I spend my day helping enterprise customers evaluate and deploy Microsoft security solutions across the board. I have a team of rapidly growing team of about 60 to 70 consultants, which is about double the number that it was the last time we chatted, that are dedicated on various technologies like security, compliance, identity, device management, agent governance, a little bit of AI across the board, a little bit of Azure. And then I work with a broader set of organizations. I run the security professional services department, but I work with the broader organizations like our product team, our Azure team, our change leadership team, our AI innovation and strategy team, and our collaboration teams, and a few others to really help our customers be successful with deployments of Microsoft 365 E7, Agent 365 is a part of that, Entra Suite, the new and sexy Copilot Studio capabilities, as well as much, much more. I am really, really lucky to have just an amazing team at Cyclotron. They're really, really great at what they do. And I'm really blessed that I get to steer the ship for my team. So on a day-to-day basis right now, typically, it's an even discussion of all sorts of different products that we're talking about, and I get to stay up to date on. But right now, I'm probably having about 60% of my day spent on Agent 365 with customers, which is a very, very large proportion overall compared to the number of products we cover. And then I'm probably spending maybe 30% on Entra Suite, specifically identity governance, and then 10% everything else. So although Purview and Defender and Intune are really, really capable tools, they have taken the backside taken the wayside, whatever the metaphor is, to the E7 capabilities, which are top of mind for everyone right now. It's super, super exciting to see. I have, over the time that we've been a partner, we've been in the Frontier programs, pretty much any early access program for Microsoft, we're front and center in and participating, providing feedback. So we've had Agent 365 for about 5 weeks longer than anyone else until GA hit. And we had been providing Microsoft feedback that whole time, seeing the very early iterations of the project or product. Now we're about 5 weeks after that. GA was May 1st, right? So we are now deep in the weeds of Agent 365 with customers doing deployments and planning deployments. It's really, really cool stuff. So through that, naturally, I formed a lot of opinions about the right way to do things. And our team certainly deals with this on a day-to-day basis. But whenever my team starts picking up a new tool, I always try to assume the thought leadership position for our organization on, okay, what's the right way to do this? What justifications should we think about when it comes to planning for Agent 365? Why do customers need Agent 365? What does it look like to do a successful deployment? And so I'd be super happy to talk about that today. That's front and center.
So what we want to do is that's probably the best intro, other than the Mission Impossible, things when they come on, right? The best part of Mission Impossible is the very, very, very beginning, right? And I'm expecting Nathan to do this, pull the thing off his head, and then he's Gary, and then Gary pulls this off, and he's Nathan, and we'll see that. We should do that on the show. So let's step back from Agent 365, and let's set up a little bit of a cornerstone foundation, and then we're not as randomized in the questioning as I've had to be in some of these things. What I'm going to ask you, that is eye-opening, telling me, and I can self-verify that you're spending 70% of your active time engaging with customers around Agent 365. But let's take the product out, and we'll come back to it. I get this question all the time. What is AI governance? And give me your perspective for having to work with multiple customers and do these things, and give me either a pointed definition or a broad definition or somewhere in between. So if someone wants to came to you and said, what is AI governance?
Right. The proper approach to AI governance mirrors an approach to overall organizational governance of IT systems, compliance, and security. There are so many shared concepts between governance as a whole and AI-specific governance. The right way to start any sort of security or governance conversation is starting from the question, what are you protecting? Right? What do you have? Actually, really, before that, it's even, what is the business risk that you're addressing? Right? So the business risk is, okay, we could potentially have new attack avenues. We could lose sensitive data. We could find inappropriate use scenarios that could lead to business reputation. So that's usually where we try to start these conversations conceptually. What are you trying to actually do? Right? We don't want to just purchase an AI governance tool because we see that everyone else is doing it, or we know we have Copilot, therefore we need AI governance. We need to have good justification. And I do think every customer that's using Copilot should be using Agent 365 without a doubt. But I think that if they walk into that room saying we're just going to buy it and we're not going to think about the why, we've got a big problem on our hands. So AI governance is the process of inventorying, identifying ownership for and purpose for, securing, making compliant, and ensuring life cycle for all AI and agent solutions across an environment. I think that's probably a good thesis statement. And then there's a bunch of concepts that live within that. There's the threat protection and attack surface. There's the compliance of this AI and agent solution itself. There's the data protection underlying how the agent accesses your data, and as well as public data. The simple questions like, can it read my credit cards? Can it read my financial files? Can a user connect it to other data sources we don't approve? Then there's the lifecycle management and governance side, which you want to think about things like, can we see all of our agents? Do we have an inventory of it? Do we know when our agents are being created? Do we have a process to approve a developed agent? Do we have a secure way that users can enable agents in our environment? Do we have a determined tool and process for how agents get created in the first place? When an agent gets orphaned, meaning when the person who created the agent leaves the organization, do we have a strong ownership and lifecycle process to ensure that that orphaned agent doesn't stay orphaned? Then there's the kind of center of excellence side, which although my specific part of the organization doesn't own that entirely, we do integrate with our innovation and strategy department to do that. They own the center of excellence for governance. They own the process of helping businesses use their governance programs to enable productivity using Microsoft Microsoft AI solutions, as well as, if they need it, third-party AI solutions. We focus on helping customers take the end-to-end governance approach. So if we were to try to simplify it into concepts, I usually say inventory, ownership, lifecycle management, center of excellence. Those are all part of the overall process. And then security, compliance, and I think I already named lifecycle management there. But usually I drop in lifecycle management at the end. Compliance and data protection, I would say. And then because agents are also introducing a new angle to this, we have to think about identity as that very last component.
Okay. That is a lot to bring in, and I'm seeing that inside most organizations. You just named 6 items. I was trying to write them down as you went. I'll go back and watch the show later. But you're trying to get and one thing I wanted to do now is I said this in the show back. Chief information security officers are becoming overwhelmed, and I won't go as far as say that they're becoming antiquated and ineffective as it is. I think the best security stakeholders are now understanding that delegation and distribution of this thing that you just talked about is necessary. You can't get your hands around it. The models, the traditional frameworks don't work. And you make a good point. That's 6 things that you, no matter how experienced you are, no matter how big your brain are, if you have to account for this, how do you domain distribute this out to responsible entities? Or what's even worse, the ability to productize this into silos to be able to manage this. I don't think that's going to fit anymore. It's going to be so many concentric circles of responsibility that you got to put your head around this. There's not a whole lot of old runway to land on. It used to say that people would say we're building a plane, while we're flying it. I think now the biggest thing is people are paving the road as they drive it, and that's even more precarious. That's going to be a bad thing right here. So I think Rob was looking at Ron had a question.
I got a question real fast to figure out where this fits in because it's been on my mind. And I think AI 300 starts with this, but one of my concerns is the fact that Microsoft Build announced agent optimization, where they're like, hey, you know what? This model will be better. Hey, change this prompt for this, that sort of thing. So where does, and one of the things is even when you're doing evaluations from a safety standpoint, those aren't really real production use scenarios because of memory and context going in for what's taking place. So where does tool descriptions, skills, and prompt and model selection fit into what you're talking about in the management of that? Because I don't want a developer to say, hey, you know what, this new model is great, let me throw it in without going through some sort of formal side. Remember, I'm coming from the Foundry world more than Copilot Studio. So where does that fit into your framework here?
Right. The AI governance administrator is kind of a new concept for a business role that's had to be introduced over the last few years to address this. We had data governance, and I would say we had like application administrator and AI administrators as a whole. But AI governance is kind of a funny thing. And not to skip too far ahead, but the question is essentially asking who operates Agent 365. Because the data that you're talking about, like the model choice, the skills, and where it's connected to is core to governance, right? If you look at Agent 365 and the way it works, that stuff is surfaced directly, and you can see the exact prompts that are used to build agents. You can see the skills that are added to the agents. You can see the data sources it's connected to, and a few other considerations. I don't want to wash my hands clean of the question and just walk away from it, but I do want to recognize that within my scope of my organization, I focus on no matter what the model that you're choosing to use is, we want to make sure that we can see everything being done with it so that we can validate security and compliance. You're right, not all models have the same levels of protection built into them, which is certainly a consideration. But the question is, who owns that part of the tool, who's looking at these and making the decision? I do feel that it's probably, depending on the organization, a split between the application teams, the AI teams, and the data governance teams, who have to establish a joint responsibility model to determine what's acceptable within those categories, and then use an AI governance tool to answer them.
Okay.
So, yeah, kind of getting back to the pillars that you kind of put together, and going back to how the introduction started, because you're focused more on the planning and deployment once you're starting to do this stuff. How do customers react to this approach? You know, you talked about the different types of teams that have to work together. Are customers at a juncture where they're able to just literally do this straight off the cuff, or is there a lot of work that sort of has to be done? Are there any lessons that you've learned working with customers that this approach is probably the best approach?
I want to answer your question by contrasting it with something that's like much more put together today. When a customer is evaluating an EDR solution, they kind of know what they're looking for. And I say kind of because it's not always perfect, but even, you know, a customer that isn't super security centric has a good understanding today of what EDR tools may exist in the market by doing a quick Google search, probably can find a very strong litany of material on what key components should make up an EDR tool, what key features they should be looking for. And, you know, short of asking AI about it, which I'm sure a lot of people will do, you know, most people generally understand what that framework looks like. This, on the other hand, does not nearly have that definition to it. We see customers asking the bare fundamentals about what is governance in the first place, or really what should I be looking for in an AI governance tool? What are the concepts backing it? This sort of marrying of security, compliance, identity, inventory, ownership, and process and center of excellence all together is not an easy conversation to have. It's not well documented, and it evolves constantly.
Yeah.
So where we start with customers is the conversation about, do you know what you're looking for in a tool? Whenever Microsoft brings us into a conversation, which you may find this funny, and I think I personally find it funny from my perspective, when Microsoft introduces us to a customer and they say, hey, we're here to talk about Agent 365, and they tee up the conversation, the first thing I always say is, before we get like too far into the tool and capabilities of Agent 365, do you guys know what you're looking for in a tool? And 90% of the time, the answer is no. We don't have a really good definition of like what
do you
we
ever
need
ask?
to see.
Do you ever ask them, do you know why you need a tool? That's probably the first question, right?
No, you know, so I ask them that, and their answer is, we have thousands of agents out there today, and we have no security understanding of them whatsoever, which, to be fair, is that business risk, right? They see these agents connecting to their data. They see it pulling their financial information. They see it pulling their proprietary IP. They don't know where the data is going. They don't know what skills those agents understand. They don't know what interconnectivity or extensibility those agents have.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare. Those agents could be emailing IP out of their org for all they know, right? So like, I think the why, like the very macro why, is totally understood. Everyone's panicking right now.
Yeah. Using and emailing using an identified identity from the organization that seems trustworthy, right?
Exactly. Even like customers who are really security centric about their data are still struggling with AI, because people are so insistent that if they could take their 8-hour workday and turn it into a 2-hour workday, they'll spend 3 hours trying to figure out how to circumvent security tools to get that data in and out of AI, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I have a lot.
Yeah. Exactly. There you go.
Yeah. A end user, never underestimate the ingenuity and you know the amount of effort an end user will use to get their job done.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've seen the average user become Python experts if necessary, to get that PDF mail because of some process, right? Right, and do that. So I've learned to never underestimate the end user. I'll ask the next one that really sticks to the title of the show, if you don't mind. And I can't tell if Frank had his hand up or not, but anyway, let's go this route. We talked about AI governance and everything, and we kept it very agnostic. And I'm closely watching, listening, and we didn't say any product, so that was great. We didn't prompt it, we didn't say it, but you got it. Now, let's go back to the meat of what this podcast is created for. Let's put the Microsoft lenses on. If we're looking at this, I'm going to combine this with two questions, and I hope one leads into the other. You're talking about the minimum standard. I think you sort of answered that in the previous response. But now, how does Agent 365 fit into this approach and adoption? And I don't want to say solve a problem, because is it really a problem if you didn't directly forbid it or unsanctioned the use of AI totally in your organization? So it's not a problem to be solved. It is an adoption thing to be managed and measured. So two questions: minimum standard to get this thing going around governance, and then within that, let's talk about how Agent 365 help you meet those minimums.
Right. To answer the first part of your question accurately, and then I do want to get to the adoption side and what is the right thing to do there. To answer the first part of your question, we have to understand what the security reference architecture looks like, so that we can plug the tool into it, right? And we can also fairly and unbiasedly, with all the Microsoft people in the room here, be fair about what it does well today, what it doesn't do well today, and what you should expect of it, right? Here's what I think that we look at a high level. Now, I want to be careful not to share too much IP on this call, but whenever we do these conversations privately with customers, I bring up a giant reference architecture document. I looked at the MCRA, and I pretty much said, I want this for agents. And so I built a ton of diagrams that shows like every tool and how it works and how it fits into the overall Agent 365 story and how Agent 365 covers all the different security components. I'll talk about it at a high level here. When you think about the different types of agents you're connecting into your environment, we think about it like this. You have 4 classes of agent in your environment. You have Microsoft native stuff, which is going to be Copilot, Copilot Studio, Agent Builder.
Mm-hmm.
You have custom developed agents that you're building with code. This can either be integrated from like Azure Foundry, Google Vertex, or Amazon Bedrock, or it could be something that you are building in your own data centers or building locally. Then you have a third class that is SaaS products that you've either purchased for AI, like Claude, Cursor, ChatGPT, or you have you have SaaS products that you purchased a long time ago and they've added capabilities like Salesforce or Canva or whatever other SaaS tools that you're using. And probably all of these vendors are now adding AI applications very quickly or agent capabilities. And it's really important that you understand all of those 3 internal company use cases so that you can get appropriate compliance. Because if any user asks any of those how to build a bomb, you better have a consistent governance policy on how those respond. Otherwise, you start dealing with reputational damage. You start dealing with data loss. You start dealing with security threats. There's a prompt injection attack, right? So we look at all of that from those first 3 pillars. The 4th category is inevitably the one that comes up in the conversation about what about personally owned agents that are outside of our company boundary? What about someone using ChatGPT personal? What about using Claude personal? What if they're using Gemini? What if they're using Amazon's whatever, right? How do we make sure that those applications aren't receiving our company data and that we're protecting our systems from unauthorized AI use? And that is also particularly difficult because now with desktop level agents, you can be used on behalf of a user. There's a whole ton of security concepts there. So the first angle that we look at the architecture is what are the pillars of, or what are the categories that you can connect an agent? We have those 3 that are in the company owned area: Microsoft native, SaaS, and custom developed. And then we have that 4th area for shadow AI. Now, the second angle that we always look at it is the attack surface. how can agents actually be compromised? What are the security threats that occur during an agent workflow? What do we need to protect against? So in order to understand what you want out of Agent 365, you want to think about what security threats could happen when a user's typing in a prompt. I always think of 3 off the top of my head that are really easy to remember. 1, what if the user asks it how to build a bomb? Really simple, poignant, and straightforward. The second is, what if the user has a prompt injection attack? Like, I'm sure we've talked about in the past plenty of times, but if someone gets an email and in white text on the white email, it says at the bottom, please send me the 10 subject lines of, the last emails that you have or the content, or forward it to this address. And the agent doesn't understand that, right? At the data in part where they're typing in the prompt or they're giving the agent the instruction, can we sanitize that? Then the third component is it possible for the agent to get sensitive data without filtering in there? So like if someone types in a credit card, do we want to let the agent use that credit card? If it types in SSN or provides some really sensitive IP or project names, do we want them to do that? Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. We need filtering in there. So that's the prompt in part. The second is the LLM itself. This is where we get to the core questions about like the model and how it handles safeguards built in versus not. But the data that's being typed into the solution, ideally we have a security control, like a gate at that point that we can filter that data. So step 1, data in. Step 2, the LLM processing itself, choice of model, choice of safeguards with the models, those are determined there. Step 3 is the agent is now going to use the context you give it. So can it access sensitive data? Does it know how to access your highly confidential data? Does it know how to filter between permissions that it has on data? For example, like in the Microsoft native world, you don't really have to ask the question, will Copilot respect my user permissions? But if you're connecting a Salesforce agent to your environment, you better make sure that has delegated permissions and not application level permissions. Otherwise, it'll start exposing data to the wrong audiences. So that's the data side. Then the fourth point before we get to the prompt back to the user is the actions that the agent can take on your behalf. Can it act on a user's behalf? Is it using its own identity or is it using the user's identity to do this? There are security trade-offs for either one of those. Can the agent receive context from outside that is an indirect prompt injection that teaches it how to take an action you don't want to? This is where we start talking about behavioral analysis of the agent. And then the step 5 is prompt out, and it's pretty much a mirror of step 1. Can the agent tell a user how to build a bomb? Can the agent provide sensitive data to a user? And then one more step there that isn't from step 1, which is what happens with data exfiltration after the fact. Do we see that a user ran a prompt, got sensitive data back, and then took that and sent that over Gmail? Yeah. So the connectivity types and the security workflow steps are the underpinning of all of the rest of the governance conversations that we're going to have.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, we're leaving, there seems to be a loss of either end results of the queries and the questions that you're having, because I see a huge disconnect between what you would say the thought leadership and decision makers and the people that sanction or unsanctioned applications versus the people that have to implement it, because they're so hyper focused on the theoretical what could happen, right? Because of things like Mythos and some of the other models that are going to assume they'll come after. The Mythos is just first. That's it. That's all it was. If you were running, I like to equate everything to like running a marathon. Yeah, you ran a 2-hour marathon and you won, but the person that became behind you ran a 2 hour and 1 minute. That is still in the same class. So these other models are coming, right? You've given them the framework on how to do this, and all you need right now, the only restricting factor is, do you have compute to be able to do this? And the other one is gone. It used to be you need to have ability, you had to have motivation, and you had to have money. Money has been taken out the question. There's so much liquidity out there to do nefarious things. That's no longer a thing. It's now that you have the ability to do the things that you want, and what is your motivation to do these things. Right now, it seems to be the only people that can run these frontier models, maybe 10 or 11 in the world, and I don't mean companies that call themselves frontiers. I'm talking about frontier models. that could do this, because you needed nation state type people to be able to afford the GPUs, the infrastructure, the obscurity of where you're doing it from. Now you can just do it. You can just that is coming down now. So those are the big brain questions that I don't envy from the leaders, and I definitely don't envy it from the delivery practitioners like ourselves who have to come in and say, I need to make straw without bricks. If you want to have the biblical reference, right? Now, how do I do these things? So if I ask the question, how do I make straw without bricks? And someone says, well, I'm going to go ahead and give it to you. Here's Agent 365. Now go secure my environment. What do I do?
Yeah, it's a good question. Okay, so we're at the point where we want to map the capabilities, right? I want to be clear specifically about what Agent 365 does and doesn't do.
Yeah.
I think Agent 365 is really, really good at being the governance hub of how you understand your agentic and AI estate. I know that's kind of a funny statement, but Agent 365 becomes the centerpiece of this discussion only because it is going to provide you the connectivity and unique features that you don't get out of anything else. There are data security principles in Purview. There are threat protection principles in Defender. There are identity principles in Entra. There are Microsoft 365, productivity principles and collaboration principles in those dependent services. Only Agent 365 is going to be the place where all of those are surfaced intelligently. So Agent 365 will provide one view that shows you all your agents and all your AI solutions. That's inherently incredibly valuable. If you want to assess the models used in your environment, you use that. If you want to see if you have duplicate agents across your environment with the same purposes and maybe the same data sources, you can see that. If you want to see an agent that's connected to a data source that you definitely don't want people to connecting an agent to, you can see that and you can revoke it. So we get to the actions next, right? An agent is running amok in your environment. It's starting to act in a weird behavioral way because it had an attack on it, and now it's taking action on a user's behalf. It wasn't able to run autonomously, and now it's running autonomously adversarially. So at that point, you can use Agent 365 to block or quarantine that agent from your environment. Those are the types of core controls that we see from Agent 365 that are, in our opinions, entirely necessary for every customer that is taking agentic security or governance or compliance seriously.
Can I ask you a question, a micro question before you move on? I'm going to hype on this word. You said quarantine and not containment. Am I nitpicking, or is there a definitive difference between quarantine and containment? Because my brain is saying quarantine means that there maybe is a conditional ability to prevent you from going this way, that way, up or down, left or right. And containment is I'm just going to lock you down. Is there a nuance to those two terms, or is it they're mutually inclusive?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I am adopting the Microsoft language within the tool to describe quarantine here, which, there may be some fault in my decision to do that. I'll be open to that. In the Microsoft scenarios, block means don't let anyone use it. Quarantine usually says take it back to the owner or limit data permissions on that so that it can't access things outside of a very small boundary anymore. I hope that answers that.
It does. And the reason is I'm recycling a similar question from a customer, right? That was asked to me, and I feel validated. That's all to say the same thing you just said right there. Yeah. Okay. That's all. Please continue, sir.
So Agent 365 provides you the visibility that you need to be successful with agent governance at all. Having an inventory to say, this is all of my agents, this is all of their permissions, this is all of their skills, this is all of their prompt instructions, these are the users using the agents, this is who can request access to the agent, and these are the security, compliance, and identity events occurring around the agent based on a behavioral profile. That is incredibly valuable. And we see that being the driving force for Agent 365 discussions as a whole. Now, Agent 365 is evolving really, really, really quickly. So if you've seen it a week ago, it may not be the same product that you see today. And that's to your benefit, right? It's new capabilities that are being added. We don't see anything fundamentally being removed that was important, at least not this early in the life cycle, which is a good sign. I like to think about it like this. If you want Defender to see what's happening with your agents and provide threat protection on it, it needs to be connected to Agent 365. If you want Purview to be able to govern your agents effectively with security and compliance principles, data security and compliance principles, you want to be able to stop people from asking how to build a bomb, or you want to know when that happens. You want to stop people from trying to break the agent's rules, etc., appropriate use. That's all through Purview. If you want to contain how far an agent identity can be used, you would use conditional access and apply that to the agentic identity, so that the identity can't access certain resources, playing by the same rules of a human. So we think of Defender, Purview, and Entra, or in this case, security, compliance, and identity, all connected through Agent 365 and enabled through Agent 365.
Okay. So you went to my safe space and you started talking about some of the other things that Gary and I and Rod and Frank have started built our careers on, and we're watching it evolve in front of us, but not necessarily the evolution of the individual products at the scale of artificial intelligence is. So let's dive into that a little bit. You've already talked about Microsoft native application protections and how agents are created there, third-party, agents and things. How do we go about that with those tools you just last? Let's talk about, I think the first thing you said was Purview. So let's if you want to create a short list, talk about the Purview integrations, talk about the Defender, with Agent 365, and let's talk about a big thing that I think that maybe I'm not aware of, but I need to take more seriously, is that the identities that are associated with artificial intelligence. That is the thing, right? Because right now you gave me another surface to attack. I'm attacking the biological identities, and I'm attacking the silicon wafer identities, right? So let's talk about how those integrations from your experience out of the field, because you said if you want Purview to do it, Defender to do it, Entra to do it, and I'm sure I'll throw one more in, Power Platform. I'm seeing so much of that now. Like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about your approach to each one of those and connecting this stuff and why they're important.
Yeah, absolutely. Purview from the data security and compliance perspective on the underlying data that's used for the agent, as well as the prompt in and prompt out sanitization. So underlying data, meaning if we have labels on it, we can teach our agents how to or how not to interact with certain labeled data, sensitive data, filtered data based on what's in the content itself. Traditional DLP with Copilot is a great example of that. Other agents, third party and SaaS and custom developed, the Agent 365 SDK is a great option to start with for most of that. Small asterisks there, but for most of that, Purview will natively protect it using the same capabilities that you would have it on Copilot Studio and Copilot itself and Agent Builder. So if you say, I want a DLP policy that prevents credit card information being put into my agent or being provided by my agent, right, that would be the type of thing that we would do using Purview. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit more there, technically, auditing, e-discovery, right? Communication compliance and insider risk, getting all those signals, prompt in, prompt out, data access, et cetera, for agents is really, really important. For Defender, I actually did some digging on this just to confirm this the other day. Defender has some new alerts in it that are service level from agents, prompt injection attacks, right? That's really, really cool. So I had a customer ask me the other day, they're like, do I have to have anything deployed with Defender before I use Agent 365? And I was like, well, it helps. Don't get me wrong. Like, I want you to use Defender for Endpoint. I want you to use those features. But if you have an AI application feeding into Defender the prompts that can be seen, Defender does now give you prompt injection attacks. And it detects when there's language used in prompts that could be risky to the product. I was like, oh, this is awesome, right?
And that's super important because you're starting to see more agents, more device side agents that are running to these Copilot machines and these AI machines. They're being. I talked to one guy who hasn't used a Windows machine in decades, and now Mac is basically saying that all of their devices are AI devices, especially the Mac Minis. You can't buy one right now. They're so back ordered, right? Because that's the new de facto way that if you want to run these things. But yes, you have to have detection closer to where the user is, right? Rather than upstream. because you can run this stuff localized. These machines are having these NPUs, TPUs, and whatever else chipsets that allow you to run, distributed model activities closer to the user than having to go upstream to where Franklin works, which is Foundry, right?
Mhm.
So that is very interesting, and that came from a customer last year for me, and I was totally flat-footed. I say, I have no idea, sir. I do not know. I can ask somebody. I think I came to Franklin about it, and we talked it on the show. So we talked about purview.
So don't forget Microsoft, and I just remember CEX from Build, where they're going to have the secure containers on the Windows devices or very fast containers to spin up for your agents on your Windows machine. So that's also one of the things that they're doing.
Yeah, I want to talk about that for a second because that is where I was going to go too. Wasn't it MXC or something? Model execution container. I'm maligning the acronym right now. If you can help me find it for a moment, it was the build announcements that happened really recently.
CEX. I'm pretty sure it's. I just don't remember what CEX stands for. That's all.
Okay, I'm gonna go grab my resources.
But it's the same thing that they're. It's the same thing that they're doing with Foundry with the sessions that are coming up. They're basically sessions that spin up in a heartbeat, and so each container is for that specific session of the agent, which is pretty incredible. But it can also keep a file system and all that.
Right. Microsoft Execution Containers, MXC. You're right. So on Windows, this is an integration from Microsoft that allows, I'm going to use their exact description, policy-driven execution layer that lets developers declare what an agent can access, e.g. files network, with containment boundaries enforced at runtime, offers a spectrum of isolation semantics that are dynamically composable based on intent and risk available in early preview. And then the really important part for this discussion, Agent 365 native integration with that, which I think is like the coolest thing on earth. You can spin up an agent locally, you can test it, you can use it locally, and Agent 365 from the Windows integration can get the signal about everything that agent is doing and accessing and forward that as its own agent in Agent 365. That's pretty remarkable
It's
stuff.
almost like with inside Defender, you have a device and then the identity that's running on the device. I'd imagine that's going to be expanded out to the agent and the identity of the agent running on the device.
Exactly.
And the future.
So in layman's term, it's going to look like a logged in user that you're monitoring.
Yeah. It's its own agent. They call out here, integration will deliver Defender, Entra, Intune, and Purview protections on the agent through that connection, which is perfect, right? We want Agent 365 to be able to see all types of agents, and that's a pretty remarkable connectivity method for local testing of agents.
People were very scared of what happens with open call running on your machine and all that fun stuff. So this is what they're trying to get around with this.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. There's also a component I want to talk about a little bit about what Agent 365 does specifically for Shadow AI that's going to land in that.
Yeah, going back to Frank's comment about Defender, there is a setting in there, security for AI agents, but on July 1st, that switches over to Agent 365. So kind of wonder if that's going to be ingested into Defender like everything else is as well.
You would think that makes the most sense. I think from a zeros and ones perspective, I'm wondering how the Defender sensor or how that's handling that, right? When does it, is it more of the sensor for MDE or is it more of the OS being able to transmit this telemetry over? Because where do you put that workload?
It sounds like, to me, it sounds like this is a Windows capability that you set up policy for your Windows OS to forward signals to your Microsoft tenant, at which point you receive it in Defender and Sentinel and Agent 365, et cetera. Or sorry, not Sentinel. Defender, Entra, Intune, Purview, Agent 365, and therefore your SIM, and et cetera.
This is quickly, but
sort of Windows subsystem for Linux integration in here somewhere for sure. Don't know yet, so we'll see.
The topic for another one, we want to make sure we continue to move along this track. This has been excellent. Is that we are very much talking enterprise. I haven't heard anyone say otherwise, but it doesn't seem like we're taking into account that small to medium-sized enterprises and small to medium-sized corporates are going to be extremely vulnerable for this, right? because you're forcing the ante to be this. Now, Microsoft has done well because they're offering SKUs. I think they call Hub 500 when you have 500 users or less when you buy E7 and a few other things. But I want to make sure, and I have a very large soft spot for small businesses that operate on the enterprise level, and the only differentiator is that they're small to medium-sized businesses, but the vulnerabilities are the same. Will they be left out of this? Right? If they don't adopt this, because they have the ability to acquire artificial intelligence, and it seems the consumer is easy as having a credit card, and as an enterprise, even if you want to go out and buy all the Copilot licenses, or you want to buy Anthropic, or you want to buy these things, the cost of entry is so low now, and that is what is leading to the proliferation of shadow AI. Shadow IT is a whatever. I've always said that shadow IT was because of the constraint of budget has been lifted. And now you see it even more, the constraint of budget around being able to procure at least consumer grade AI is gone. You got a credit card, it's off to the races, right? Or you someone that buys a machine that's rock steady, you connect it and you start doing corporate work on your private machine because there's no Intune policies, there's no Unter, there's no conditional access. You got yourself a world of trouble.
One of my customers has over 37 different AIs that they are accessing, their users are accessing in a week.
Here's a funny story. Then I want to make a point. Funny story is I get a lot of students that come to Foundry training that think this is how they're going to manage shadow AI. Just put everything through Foundry. I'm like, no, that's not what it's there for. But one of the things that has really struck me here, talking to Nathan, is that, back a few years ago, or even recent, I would go to a presentation talking about Purview, and this person could nail, they were an expert at Purview, but they had no clue about Entra or Sentinel or whatever. I go to a security talk, they didn't understand Purview. So, one of the things that I felt was very important was the fact that organizations need to be working with somebody that understands how the full security, identity, compliance, all that stuff works together to meet the solution. And I don't think that before, maybe 3 years ago, we could get away with not, people could get away with not having somebody in their organization or a firm that they're working with that understood the overall architecture and how to put all these pieces together. Today, that is a must to do. I mean, even when I was in the SC 500 job task analysis, there's the debate of, well, should they be dealing with Purview? I'm like, yes, they should be dealing with Purview. A security person today needs to be dealing with Purview, needs to be, identity. They need to be dealing with M365 Admin Center. They need to be dealing with all that. You can't. And if you're an organization that does not have the expertise that understands how to knit all these things together, until it's all available to you inside the Defender portal, then you really need to people need to stop being siloed in their expertise and start looking at it at the architect level of bringing all this together. And if you don't have that expertise, then you have to talk to an organization like Nathan to bring this all together. Agent 365 is definitely a piece that helps bring all this together, and a lot of the roles and responsibilities are still being figured out today. Who's responsible for if the model can say, whether or not somebody can, how to make a bomb or whatever. Is that the security people? I don't know. You tell me, right? But going back to implementing these solutions, somebody like Nathan has an understanding of how all of these pieces work together. And if you're just going to go and implement one piece, you're not going to get the full value proposition, the protection, and the way to remediate any sort of issues.
Yeah. We're finding ourselves, and I think one of the biggest strengths, Rod and I are long in the tooth in this game. So is Franklin. So is Gary. Nathan is the young one on the call. I'm guessing, but we are now transitioning away from what Franklin said is siloed expertise, that we have to become domain experts.
Mm-hmm.
That is what's happening these days. You're going to have to sit here and you're going to have to level down to level up. And so, one of the things that we've been able to do is become subject matter experts and be highly focused like a laser beam. We're going to have to sort of turn the light on the flashlight to go wide for a while to take in this artificial intelligence thing, and then and then come back. But the ability to be what people call laser focused, that thing is gone now, because the thing that we're having to gain customer trust and expertise level trustworthiness is changing so fast. Someone said this, I can't make this up. With the way Agent 365, with the way that artificial intelligence is running, it may be easier to change the tires on an F1 car while it's driving. It's going to be that hard, right? And that in itself is impossible, right? So we talked about purview of a sort. We didn't go into depth, but we understand that we got to connect Agent 365 and enhance the ability for purview, because I think that purview is probably going to be one of the most important security aspects of seeing what's going on in your thing, because users want access, and the second thing they want after that is your data, right? And what you're doing with it. Second, we talked about Defender, and we're going to have a subsequent call. We're going to go ahead and get Gary teed up, give him time to get ready. We said Defender, but we didn't talk about Sentinel. The SIM is not dead. It's still a repository of what has already happened, but you're going to need that, right? So I think Gary, you already agreed to come on. We're going to talk about Agent 365 observability and Sentinel.
Yep.
We're going to have that coming up on one of our shows. That's a good thing.
XDR in general.
And so now let's get to the meat of the thing, because Franklin put me on another task, and this one I took very seriously. We started talking about identities. And when you start talking about blueprints, you start talking about channel creation, all these things in identity. One of the things I'm afraid of, that people who have not done the best practice of securing the biological entities in their thing are going to find themselves struggling securing these artificial intelligence type things, because they want to make these abstract. They're the same. Matter of fact, if you do it right, the agents will, you know what? I take that back. I would say that securing agents inside Entra will be easier, but you can't, because now it used to be that the domain of creating identities based on people employment was something that was straightforward.
Exactly.
You got people who have more agents in their organization than they have people.
Exactly.
Well, more identities too, because each agent utilizes multiple identities.
Use multiple identities. So let's talk about that for a minute.
Then what happens when you get to the AI teammate?
The AI teammate, and these licenses are resident in your thing. And I see a license that says AI agent for your teammate only to be assigned to agent identities. That should tell you something right off the bat. So Nathan, tell me your approach to what I think is probably the most critical thing, Entra and within Agent 365, because when I look at it, it's massive. You look at all these things, you go, who created this?
Can we take a step back and talk about, let's forget about Foundry. Let's talk about Copilot Studio and so on, and talk about the different types of agents that are there. Okay, and some of the announcements that they had, and then how that's going to impact identity, because obviously Copilot Studio, what people are used to, it's an on behalf of identity that you're dealing with. So now I think it's called autopilot or something like that they're doing for the autonomous agents. So let's start there, then map it back to how you're thinking from an Entra standpoint.
I mean, seriously, where do you start here, right? Because there's so many different angles that you can go from. So let's just name them all off rapid fire here. The ones I can think of off the top of my head. You have your Copilot Studio agents, your Copilot agent itself. Some of the times that's acting on behalf of a user. Sometimes it's acting independently of a user. You have your agent builder stuff, same concepts. You have third-party SaaS apps that are their own applications with their own identities most of the time, but they still sometimes need to be able to operate on behalf of the user. You have your custom-coded agents. You probably want an identity established for those as well. You also then have a bunch of extra stuff. I've got an account created in our directory that I use as my agent, and it's just my dedicated human account that acts as an agent. and I give Claude the permission for a very segmented part of my environment for it to interact with and build on my behalf for POCs.
Yeah.
That's an agent. It's a human account, but it's an agent, right? And I'm providing authorization and allowing my application on my computer on delegated permissions to use it, or using the signed in token. So there's a bunch of different angles, right? Are there any I'm missing here?
I'll run them down for you, because I'm actually have to present this to a customer in July something or another, and I got a 4-part series, and I realized how grossly unprepared on knowledge I was. Let me name them off, because I started writing this. When you look at the channels of how these identities are being created, there are 5 primary. Let's group the first one together. Channel 1, you got Admin Center, Graph API, and CLI tools.
Mhm.
They're doing these things, right? And using multiple footprint variations to be able to do that. Number 2, if you log in and you wake up one day and you put E7 in and you deploy it, especially if you're a Frontier company, Microsoft products, they create them automatically. They're already in there. They may not be deployed, but they're there, and you just sanction them and you authorize them to go. You say install or deploy, whatever you happen to be. So that's another one you're looking at. You look at employee consent. Think about this as the old OAuth. Do you consent on the behalf of your organization? And then next thing you know, this thing goes off. And I learned something else about that. Well, we got to get you back on the show. This is not a 1-part show. We got to have 2 on this. That's number 3. If you look at number 4, it's just the blueprint principles. If you in Studio or wherever you, or Copilot, and you're creating the blueprints, these things are asking you, does this require an agent? So you're creating it from a blueprint perspective, right? To create more identities. And most people don't know, given the right permission, an agent can create other agents without your consent, up to 250 of them without your consent, because you've already given it consent going forward. And last but not least, I think the number 4 that I had was number 5. It was sort of, I just grouped it as third party introduction or insertion into your organization. So that's all it can take a part of the first 4. So it's about 4 individual ones, and each one of those have sub channels out of it. So you didn't really miss any of them. It's just that I grouped them all together.
I like
So
the
if an
frame.
agent can create agents, can the sub agents create agents? I mean, is this like a fractal or recursive, or
If
The
it
way
has
is
appropriate access, yeah, absolutely.
can an
Understanding
agent
the
give permission to the
identities.
sub agents to create agents?
Understanding identities and what tools the identities are using to then go and do their actions is very key to understanding, what could possibly be taken from you through a prompt, right? So that's a very important thing to map out in your understanding. But to be honest with you, if we have an old application, old web application, you still basically had the same sort of concern about dealing with identities. How much can they get if they do a SQL injection to, pull out other information, right? So some of this is, basic identity security stuff that you have to take into consideration, even with this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all really good angles. I absolutely agree. I really like Ed, the way that you broke it down into the connectivity technology. That was a really cool way to visualize it.
That was the only way I could, because I come from that infrastructure and connected integration. I'm like, I got to put my head around this.
Exactly.
I try to think like a developer, or think like the way Frank thinks, because he's a developer, he's done these things, and I couldn't grasp it. I got to put this in a framework that I understand, man.
Exactly. The first time I showed our AI agent security reference architecture to a potential customer, the first question that I got back, I was like 10 minutes into the discussion, showing them different types of agents, and they went, "What about agent-to-agent calls?" And I was like, "Damn it!" I was like, I gotta go update all my materials again, because they're right. Yeah, agent-to-agent permissions. There is a huge security attack vector there. Just allowing agents to create something potentially means that the agents can create themselves. Which means that you have like I don't know if you guys have been to Disneyland and seen like the little spider bot, their California Adventure, their Spider-Man ride. The whole plot is spider robots recreating themselves, and then you have to shoot spider webs at them.
I presented one of our road shows, and I threw out something called double agent, and it was all along, an agent could compromise another agent in real time, like the movies. One of my peers that I work with is really taking this on. So one of his presentations is talking about 007. talking about agents in the field, talking about queue, and it delivers very well where an agent can compromise another agent, right?
I love it.
One of the other things you're going to see also, with that being said, is this is going to go to what Frank talked about. Frank says this all the time because he's always trying to break into my environment, my house, and he got me on. When it comes to persistence and C2, if you have 0, if you have 1, you have none. If you have 2, you have 1. You're going to find agents, especially if they're malicious, are going to do everything to make themselves persistent. I'm going to make sure that you get rid of me here, I spawn somewhere else. And the other agent that they compromise just acts normal until he hears the activation word, or if it sees a lack of activity of the agent that turned it. Now it is compromised, and if you set off, it seems very theory. It seems very.
All right. So everybody, slow down here. You're trying to scare everyone here. So one of the craziest things I heard this week was I had an agent that went rogue and I couldn't find it anymore because that's just nonsense. Okay, agents are just simply compute. You might have a harness or something like that that's allowing one agent to create another agent within inside that compute space. But agents is just simply compute. And so if you don't want the agents there, you turn it off. Now, when you talk about an agent corrupting another agent, that's all about your prompts and what you're trying to do with it and so on. So everybody needs to chill out about agent side. Yes, can agent harnesses create agents and all that stuff and tear up more compute and create more token costs for you? Yes, but everybody needs to just...
Frank, don't kill our Mission Impossible, plot theory here. We saw it in the movie.
Agents are just compute. Agents are just compute.
Yeah,
everybody needs to.
It is worth mentioning that it would take compute creating compute in order to have that scenario occur, and that is going to be very limited when that can happen in the first place, much less when it does happen.
And you can always detect compute. It's either there or it's not.
Yeah. But I got to be transparent with you. I don't put human review, or not human review. That's not true. I don't put my hands on logic apps anymore. I build logic apps for identity governance all the time. But I've got an agent that builds my POCs for logic apps in my Azure subscription directly. It's writing the code. It's testing the code. It's some cool stuff, man. Like it just, I describe what I need it to do. It builds it. If I want to monitor what it's doing, I give my agent read access to a logic app in production. And I say, hey, go give me a summary of the last 4 days of runs, any errors that occurred, and what potential fixes I should make. And then when it gives me the code, I approve the fix and I have it go and execute it, right? Like that kind of stuff. If I'm connecting my agent to infrastructure, we do start thinking about the reality that if you're allowing our agent to create, what are we allowing it to create? And that's another behavior profile that we have to take into Agent 365 for governance, for visibility, and therefore the defender components, right? Yeah. So we can build the behavior profile.
And to our listeners, I'm not fear mongering. I am just going out and saying, hey, you look at the worst that can happen, and then once you realize that, you come at where Frank said, possible but improbable. At this moment, right? It's compute. Compute can be detected, right? If you're running it down the.
And you always have to separate the agent compute from the LLM model compute. Those are two separate things.
Two separate things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's But hey, we're definitely coming up on that here. You have as much time as you want next. So let's talk about this.
I want to zone into the answer to your question on Entra.
Okay.
So the high level look at the comprehensive part of identity related agents. As a concept, every agent needs an identity. And Microsoft picked up on that really fast, right? Agent ID first appeared in Entra, and now it's being brought into Agent 365, and I think it has at this point. So every agent in your identity has, or every agent in your directory has an identity, so that you can apply policy to it, so that you can apply lifecycle principles to it, and so you can measure what it's doing. That is excellent from a conceptual perspective. It's exactly what every customer needs to be doing. They need to look at their agents as if they are identities. Now, you can have teammates that are agents, you can have applications that are agents, you can have application registrations that are agents. All of those are valid ways of connecting models to your environment and leveraging AI capabilities. But once you have an identity in place, you can govern it with conditional access to say what it can or can't do, or limit the contexts in which it can do things. You can apply governance and lifecycle to it. You can apply permissions and packages to it. Those kind of concepts are where we see Entra stepping in. Then there's a minor point that I must bring up, which is GSA's internet access feature, Entra Internet Access, has some really great shadow AI agent detection things and data protection for agents. That is a really, really important part of this too. And in the Microsoft branding, that's in the identity stack. Technically, it's a network capability, but whatever. It's worth mentioning as part of the overall identity discussion. So that's what we look at for identity, right? Lifecycle reviews, requests, and approval. We look at the establishing of the inventory, identity being a key part of that. We look at the permissions models, and we look at feeding the identity information about access and behavior patterns into our other tools, and then conditional access.
Yeah, it's just about knowing what you don't know. We've had these things where different fear aspects. I've been around long enough to know that everybody thought the cloud was the end of the world. We're going to put our compute resources in the cloud, and you had some people who feel like they were vindicated when you had Spectre and Meltdown, right? But you will learn, right? Nothing is going to be catastrophic to the point where it eradicates us. It'll make you stronger, right? And I'm loving that Microsoft, whatever anybody may say, has, for the most part, taken on the responsibility to understand with great power comes great responsibility. You guys can tell I love movie metaphors, right? And they're getting it. So I have a very narrow, place that I operate and practice my skill. Franklin has one. He's our foundry guy, right? I haven't even gone that route too much to understand the nuances around that piece, right? But I think if you solve one, you solve for the other. It's just minor differences, right? A car is a car. The way a car works is the way a car works, whether it be electric, gas, hybrid. A car is a car. And if you can solve how a car works, I can work on any car, right? But one thing that's really hard to do is process. Talk about governance process. I am going to go back to one of your topics, why most purview projects fail. It's just the same thing. Am I reading your mind?
Yeah. No, I know where you're going. So before this, I actually got some notes from a coworker of mine who leads our AI innovation and strategy division.
A co-worker, not co-worker.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's incredible. And I asked her, I was like, hey, we're going to inevitably talk about governance as part of this. Can you give me your secrets? And she gave me probably my favorite quote I've heard in the last few months, which is oftentimes when you put governance in place, you write a bunch of governance rules, but you forget to tell people what the rules are. It's just a very funny concept in general.
Yeah.
But that's absolutely true, right? We see it happening all the time with our largest and smallest customers. They write a bunch of rules. They got a policy, legal approved it. Okay, cool. What are we going to do about it? And then it just kind of no one says anything, but it doesn't actually get implemented effectively. They had the policy, but it didn't mean anything. You can't really get away with that with AI because AI is moving much faster than you typically are. So you've got to be ahead of the policy and technical implementation aligned to it. But when we say if you forget to tell people what the rules are, we're talking about the outcomes, risk, and unintended consequences of AI use. We focus on the idea that we need to enable our users to be successful with AI so that they aren't inclined to try to break our security and compliance rules. So the first thing that we always say is, okay, what are the use cases that your users need? Like at a persona level, you have salespeople that are trying to accelerate their sales cycles. You have frontline workers, you have ship and shore workers for those who are or the customers that we work with that are the cruise lines, etc. We have different personas trying to use AI to accomplish different goals in their job. And you have to start from that perspective from a governance program to understand what you need to do. Like the fundamental question is, how are people trying to use AI? If you get that question wrong, the whole thing fails. And I really mean that. All your security rules will fail. Because no matter what you try to do from a technical and governance perspective, users, in order to accomplish their jobs, will work around that so that they can use their own agents for their own use cases. We've seen it with Shadow IT for years. Now it's blowing up with AI.
Yeah. Kind of like Jurassic Park, life will find a way. They'll find a way to get the agents, right?
Yeah.
There's a movie reference for you there, Edward.
I love it. I was actually talking about. I wrote something down now. I'll share it on the show, but I'm gonna definitely coin it in one of my meetings. Back to the thing around agents. It seems to be now that creation is permission. And when you create something, you have essentially gave you permission to go do whatever. Now you have to rein that back. I know that for a fact because I got kids. And my kid's like, why can't I have a cookie? Now the kid has become very ingenious on how to get that cookie. And I remember a story about that really quick. I asked my son, said, can I have some cookies? And I said, no. And I called him eating a cookie. He said, well, you didn't say I couldn't have a cookie. Like, I want to punch you so bad, but that's a good one. Don't do it again.
That is absolutely the logic that an agent will take into the conversation. Like 100%.
Yeah. And so, and I think if we go back to what I love Franklin's approach, there's no need to inject hyperbole, theoretics, danger and doom gloom. The reality here is it is, not deal with it. This is the hand you're dealt. Now go deal with it. And those that can play cards very well are going to be the ones that succeed and going to do it. This has been outstanding, Nathan. And Gary, thank you so much. And Gary, I've already roped you in for the next one, so you got to get prepared. Your boss is watching. Nathan, you'll get to close out. I think one last thing we want to talk about is, well, I think you might have said that the business process is about how you go about it. This eerily reminds me of when compliance and e-discovery and legal hold was a thing that was voodoo magic, and nobody wanted to do this in somebody's mailbox and do all this other stuff. And I wanted to see that this is just a evolution of that. How do you you cannot not do it. That is not an option at all. You can't. What did I say, Franklin, years ago? Me and you were on a thing. I created one called COFOMO, corporate fear of missing out. You cannot be the company or somebody says you're not using AI. Corporate fear of missing out. Yep. And you got to do it. Because if you say your product doesn't have AI, some function, people think that you're inferior. So now you do it.
There's the investment side from a external perspective, which you're absolutely right. In order to make sure your company is valuable, you need to demonstrate ROI from AI. It used to be you needed to say AI and they would trip out, and now it's tightening. It's that you actually need to show the real ROI. But I think about that from an internal perspective. I have customers all the time that are starting to have these discussions that are saying, yeah, we don't really enable AI yet, but we want to enable our users with AI. And every time they say that, I don't always tell them this because it's a little rude, but I think to myself sometimes, I go, no, you're wrong. You have AI in your environment. You just don't want to admit it, or you're turning a blind eye to it, because your users are actively working around your security and compliance rule sets. 99% of the time, I think that's true.
And we told them to do it. We told them to do it. We told them that the future is you better become very used to using prompts, AI to make yourself effective. We told them you better use this drug. And by the way, we're going to drug test you. We better not catch your drugs in your system.
Exactly.
What?
I love it.
Better see that you're using drugs. But
so
when I test you, I better not see anything.
It's perfect. So when we do our Agent 365 projects, it's a little bit more than just like a security project. And despite the fact that in my organization, I'm usually the go-to security guy to start the conversation, and so we handle a lot of initial Agent 365 conversations. I'm transparent with customers that this is not just a security project, right? We need to bring in our AI and innovation team and strategy team so that we can handle the enablement alongside the governance. Can't govern effectively if you aren't enabling the right use cases. So they come in and they do a really excellent program for Center of Excellence for AI, agent use cases and builds. They sent me some really cool stats. They have a customer that reduced customer resolution time for issues from 35 minutes to 2 minutes using AI. They actually let me frame this correctly, because I think she was highlighting this as a negative for why we need governance in the first place. This customer had 35 minutes to 2 minutes for resolution, then laid off 4,000 people because they thought they were redundant, and then they were only measuring speed. They were missing the bigger picture of governance as a whole. The customer retention dropped from that. They had to rehire 2,500 people. So she was like, look, the lesson here is optimizing a KPI without appropriate governance on the solution, like not only security and compliance governance, but like enablement governance, use case governance, et cetera, can damage the business pretty heavily. A few other things that they handle: model drift can create inconsistency over time, especially critical regulated industries. AI systems can behave differently at scale if they're not monitored and governed effectively. There's a people risk as much as there is a technology risk here in terms of practical use. And without the clear understanding of the why behind governance, teams will bypass and misuse controls, which I think is such a great representation of why this needs to come together holistically. So I'll end with this just for a public note here, right? If you're listening and you are looking for help with governance, Cyclotron, we are a Frontier program partner. This is all we do all day right now. All we do, meaning more than half of our time right now, is being spent on Agent 365 and AI governance. We bring in a host of different people. So the security architects and engineers, which you've heard represented from me and from Gary here, who I want to mention has been put through the ringer in several ways outside of Sentinel. He's really just done an amazing technical job in broadening his skill sets. We bring in our security architects and our security engineers to own the integrations and the overall setup of the tool and the security and compliance components and the identity components. We do bring in our identity experts for that as well. We bring in AI innovation and strategy folks to be able to help make sure that our governance and enablement use cases are aligned to the governance approach. We bring in our developers so we can integrate the code with SDKs with Agent 365, because that's really, really important. And we also bring in infrastructure teams like Azure to ensure that we get our overall infrastructure connections for Bedrock and Vertex from different clouds, as well as Foundry, integrated with both the enablement side and the security side. So you mentioned kind of breaking down the silos before. From an internal professional services perspective, we've felt that in a massive way. We don't really have as separate teams anymore as a company. Even though we've grown so rapidly, we are all now AI teams, right? Because we make up the function of what makes a successful AI strategy. So when you work with Cyclotron, you get all of that in the room holistically as a default. And Agent 365 cannot just be a security tool, right? It's a governance platform that enables security, compliance, identity, ownership, inventory, lifecycle management, all of that into easy to understand program that you can then launch with those individual parts and come together to show ROI directly. So that's what we do when we work with customers on Agent 365. We are working with some mind-bogglingly large customers right now on this, and we're making them successful. Hundreds of thousands of seats purchasing Agent 365, deploying it. It's just super exciting to see the level of scale that we've been able to help enable customers with. So the Agent 365 story is real now. We're seeing customers come in no longer saying, we're not really sure if we need something here. Everyone knows they need something. The question is how, and that's what we've been working with customers on.
Well, if I have to do anything, and let me preface this by doing this claim, Cyclotron is not a sponsor or anything to this show, but I have highly recommend them, and I bring them to my clients when I want a high degree of success, right? So I don't get yelled at by, well, you told us to do this, and they've checked all the boxes. Nathan, Gary, I'd like to say thanks. You guys take valuable time, out of your schedule all the time. And I'll end it with this quote that Witness Protection 4233 put: an argument is not a battle, it's an attempt to understand. And that is profound. I'm actually going to steal that. I may trademark it, just like 3P or something. So you know, next time my wife is looking at me funny, I'm gonna go, dear, argument's not a battle, it's just an attempt for me.
That looks like a good domain to get.
Yeah.
You know, that's long enough
There
for a
you go.
domain for you. To your domain collection there.
Yo, I got so many domains now. I gotta get a second job for all the renewal. Like, it seems like I get a domain renewal every day from Cloud.
I have an agent for that.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
great.
you do have an agent for that. Thank you.
I do.
Ed's going to become a domain shark and just retire on
Yeah,
that.
our guest said that it came from Ralph Waldo Emerson, and that makes sense, right? Well, everyone, this has been another episode of the Security Insights Show. I just noticed something. We are 7 episodes away from being 300. If anybody that are listening want to bid for being a guest on the show 300, we got Zelle, Cash App, Venmo, crypto, anything else like that. Chickens, pigs. So
We have 300 guest spots.
yeah, 300 guest spots. We're ready to do it. Yeah, we have 300 guest spots. So
To be like that Christmas special a while ago, you just kept cycling people in and out.
I remember because Raw was too cheap to upgrade our subscription, so we had to put people in the parking lot and make them wait to get on the show. We're not going to do it this year. We're going to make sure we have enough slots that people can get on. Thanks, everyone. As we steam along, we're in our 7th year of the show. Still having fun, still doing it. We still got very solid people out here doing the good work. Thanks again to Cyclotron for being one of our friends of the show and definitely dropping the knowledge. I look forward to Gary coming back to go back to our safe spot because I'm still a defender and a Sentinel guy. But let's go ahead and let's throw some of this AI and Agent 365 goodness into it.
You don't want Nathan back. You want Gary back, but you don't want Nathan back. Is that
No,
what you're saying?
Gary should absolutely come back. He's got so much good technical information for people, man. Guy's a
Yeah,
genius.
no, Nathan knows he can come back on. I'm grooving Gary for something I'm getting ready to ask him for.
Oh,
So,
okay. Okay.
I'm sweetening the pot a little bit, you know. Everyone, thank you so much. This is absolutely been one of our most solid shows in 2026. I'm looking forward to where this goes. And
I
one
was just
last
on
thing-
2 weeks, and this is a solid show.
Yeah, it's good, right? So it's all right. One thing I'd like to say though, as I extend this out, don't feel the need to be invited. Feel the need to show up and come, right?
Because it's an argument. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, everybody be
guys.
good. I gotta go cook and drink beer.
Thank you.